The following musical program was provided by the girls of the Tarrys Improvement Society when a complimentary dinner, Russian style, was tendered to Mrs. R. Fleming on the occasion of her retirement from teaching at the Tarrys Public School. Following the very acceptable program by the girls, Miss C. Mogendoorn gave the address to Mrs. Fleming on behalf of the Castlegar District Teachers Association. We are greatly indebted to Don Mowbray of Castlegar for the loan of the tape he recorded at this affair.
Тьма разойдется, жди, пока буря пройдет, завтра согреет нас солнце, после как дождик прольет, ярче не станет звезда, и когда ночь нас накроет, сердце зачем унывать? Полночь пройдет, мы с надеждой, ясный рассвет будем ждать. Шепот найдешь, а ты милость творишь, грусти ты сердце мое веселишь.
Secondly, we have a trio singing a folk song about a girl who is continually having trouble with her boyfriend. While sleeping on a hearth, which was customary in Russia, she imagined her boyfriend beside her. On awakening, she found herself clutching a sack. One character was really after her, but there was only one trouble: he had a beard. Finally, her wedding date was set. A family arrived on a beautiful white mare to perform the ceremony. But unfortunately, they had to turn back. They forgot the bridegroom.
Раздайся, народ, меня пляска берет, пройду, пропляшу, на народ полежу. Иха! Ай-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй ранішок. О! Ай-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй. Меня милый не узнал, пень березовый обнял, думал, кофта розовая, это пень березовая, негодяй. Ай-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй. Ох, девицы, беда, куда мне деваться? По колено борода лезет целоваться. Фу! На стене висит пальто, меня не сватает никто. Пойду в поле закричу, караул замуж хочу. Ай-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй, ай-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй. Приезжали ко мне сваты на белой кобыле, повернулись назад, жениха забыли.
And last of all, we have a folk song, which you have requested, the catastrophe with some turnips. After growing a fine crop of turnips, the farmer noticed they began to disappear. After constant watching, he caught the thief, tied him to a tree, only to find that the thief was his mother-in-law.
Посадил дед репку, ни густо, ни редко. Барыня ты моя, судариня, барыня, барыня ты моя, судариня, барыня. Стала репа вырастать, стали вори воровать. Барыня ты моя, судариня, барыня, барыня ты моя, судариня, барыня. Каравуй ты ночку, каравуй другую. Барыня ты моя, судариня, барыня, барыня ты моя, судариня, барыня. На третью ночку мы вора поймали. Барыня ты моя, судариня, барыня, барыня ты моя, судариня, барыня. Мы поймали не вора, это тёща моя. Барыня ты моя, судариня, барыня, барыня ты моя, судариня, барыня. Мы эту тёщу к дубу привязали. Барыня ты моя, судариня, барыня, барыня ты моя, судариня, барыня. Ну, это тёща дубу... О, мы эту тёщу к дубу привязали. Барыня ты моя, судариня, барыня, барыня ты моя, судариня, барыня. Эти вори не чужие, все наши родные. Барыня ты моя, судариня, барыня, барыня ты моя, судариня, барыня. Home, and I wondered if Mama was there all alone. I thought I'd drop by as I've done before, but the sound from within made me stop at the door. She was praying
Mrs. Mackenzie, Mr. Clements, the geographical representative, who is in the trail, Mrs. Jacobson, the member of the board, who will make the presentation, Mrs. Fleming on my extreme right, Mr. Fleming, Mr. Mackenzie, and Mr. Cantel, who will also make the presentation. And now I would like to call upon Ms. Mogendoorn to give the eulogies.
Mr. Chairman, I feel awfully sorry. Mrs. Walters and I, we have been making that, and we were supposed to sing that before we had our supper. What about singing it now? You will all know it. I hope all these Russian people will hear me. Wash and plow, I think. Is that right? No. Wash and plow. No, it isn't right now. Wash and plow for all guests. Perry and Perry and bread, trying your best. But let's sing We've Done Our Best. It is a tune of Are you sleeping? Are you sleeping? Are you sleeping? How about you taking over? Are you sleeping? You're doing fine. Mr. Fisher.
I know what the tune is. La 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 la
It's around. Yeah, horse and plow. Now sing the words. Horse and plow. Mr. Chairman, honored guests, fellow teachers. After having enjoyed this delectable supper, I found that word addiction. In pleasant company, we would almost forget why we are here tonight. Mrs. Fleming, this is your farewell party, and we are all most happy to share this new vision and this editor. When I was asked to say a few words on the occasion of your retirement, on behalf of the teachers in Castlegar School District, I was a bit surprised. I didn't think that this honor should be bestowed upon me again. This is a farewell party. There's always some something sad about that. The French say, I hope nobody else know how to speak French. Partir, c'est mourir un peu. Meaning, to part is to die a little. Now, Canadians on the whole, I found, are pleasant, hospitable, helpful, fun-loving. I'll stop right here and let the lesser things take care of themselves. Well, anyway, I don't think that Canadians like to die a little when saying goodbye to a good friend. That's why they ask a naive foreigner to do that for them. Of course, they don't say that. On the contrary, they make you believe all kinds of things that a person likes to hear. But since I've seen through all this at long last, I would suggest you start searching for another victim. To do a little dying next time. I'll be one of you then. Mrs. Fleming, it sounds awful, but I am honored that I may have the last word. I'm elated to think that no Canadian has been found worse than another. I feel that now I can afford to like you all. And I'll mention this in my letters to Holland. To some of you who begin to wonder if I'll ever come to the facts of Mrs. Fleming's life you're waiting for, I would remind that I'm a teacher, or try to be one at least. We as teachers are not supposed to give the cold, hard facts, point blank. We wrap them up in some nice sweet frills and fringes. Sometimes we play some pleasant little games to hide the horrible fact that we want to teach some very old-fashioned arithmetic. We are having fun all the time, aren't we? Well, Mrs. Fleming was born in Glengarry, is that right? Ontario, as Minnie Roberts some years ago. For 1 year, she attended provincial normal school in Vancouver, the only normal school in BC at that time. Miss Robertson moved to Vancouver, where she taught for 4 years. Here she met Mr. Ross Fleming. This meeting had a happy ending. They were married. Mrs. Fleming didn't stay home very long. At that time, there was a shortage of teachers. Even so, that the government paid the fare to and from your hometown at a rate of 5 cents per mile. As the railway fare was 3 cents per mile, you can easily see that teaching at that time was a money-making business. Sometime after, Mrs. Fleming thought it wise and convenient to leave. You see, Mr. and Mrs. Fleming are the proud parents of 6 boys and 2 girls. I think I would like to introduce to you one of Mrs. Fleming's daughters who is here tonight with us. We're very happy to have her here. Would you mind to stand up? You can imagine that there was no time then to teach school. The Flemings didn't do their job as parents have. All 8 children were taught to play an instrument. Violin, piano, cello, is that true? Some more? Flute? Every morning at 6 o'clock the practicing started, the children still in pajamas. It must have been quite a sight to see them lined up for their turn. These children were always in the festival. They weren't only musical, but Mrs. Fleming taught them to knit and to sew as well, the boys too. Their products were sent to Vancouver and Victoria. I'm told that these boys were no sissies either. How could they? they were also paper boys who had to get up at 4:15 a.m. in order to be at their post at 5 a.m. As a result, Mrs. Fleming is still an early riser. In 1944, Mrs. Fleming was called back to Shoreacre School, which was then under the control of an official trustee. Not long after, Castlegar took over the school where Mrs. Waters was already teaching. This little school was down at the edge of the river, about where the Great Ferry is now. One year, the water came up so high that it undermined the foundation of the building. It was then condemned. This event and the coming in of school buses brought Mrs. Fleming and Mrs. Waters to Tarrys, opposite the cemetery, in another old building. When there was a strong wind, it had a hard job to hold its own. Up at the top of the wall, a steel rod was run from one wall to the other, with a huge nut at each end of the rod on the outside of the walls to keep it from collapsing. Mr. Tarrys, whom I happened to meet a few years ago, donated the land for a new school, which was built in due time. Didn't get to date. On the eve of the opening, this beautiful new school, with all that it contained, was burned down. Then the old building, condemned building, was promoted again to school. And moved to where it stands now. You would recognize it. It's the community hall at Tarrys, the one you are occupying right at this moment. This happened just before Easter. A month holidays was necessary to get everything in readiness for some more teaching. Then a new two-room was built. I think that Mrs. Fleming and Mrs. Waters must have felt that at last they had come to rest. Of course, I mean a rest of moving to and fro all the time. Just before Christmas 1956, Mrs. Gray and I could move into the two rooms we are teaching in now. We had quite a good time teaching in this old building. You remember, Mrs. Gray? The partition in between here, and you could hear every word the other one said. Quite fun, and a huge stove you had to look after. Sometimes you had to borrow each other's cold because you had to go out. So, Mrs. Fleming has been teaching here since 1944 under favorable and under less favorable circumstances. She has seen many little ones come in her classroom unable to speak a word of English. But pretty soon they were able to read about all those exciting happenings in Dick's and Jane's little library. Look and see. Look and see Spot. She has received the little boys and girls and has made them feel that they would like to learn more about this wonderful world round about. She has seen many come and go and has had the satisfaction of laying the foundation of learning. Miss Fleming, we will miss you in the school. But I'm afraid that I have to be honest, however. I must say that there might be people who see you retire with regret for your sake, and nevertheless is a sign of relief for their own sakes. We all know about Mrs. Fleming's marvelous achievements in the festival each year. So maybe they are hoping to get a chance. Mrs. Fleming is tops both in elocution and in singing. Mrs. Fleming, what are we to do next year? A festival and Tarrys just can't be separated. Mrs. Waters, Mrs. Gray and I have already had bad dreams. Who is going to do it next year? I don't see any light yet. When I hear the children recite or sing, I can only think, how does she do it? In connection with this, I should like to mention Mr. Fleming, who justly can be called the father of the festival movement in Kootenay since 1930. Mrs. Fleming, I want to thank you personally for help you giving me. In the first place, you've been my very willing errand girl. Every time I needed something from Nelson, I never did call you in vain. And I don't know, some people shoot this in here, but I don't know how many times I've run in and out of your room asking for help when my dictionary left me in the dark. I knew that next door Mrs. Fleming would be happy to undo for me some of the secrets of the English language. The other day it was remarked by someone that pretty soon again we'll have to fill in 1 million papers. A little exaggerated. But I remember how desperate I felt when teaching my first year in Canada, in the 8th grade one-room school in Charlotte. There was nobody there who could tell me how to fill in. And I'm not able to tell you what I've done with them. I'm still surprised that I wasn't ordered out of the country. No fear for that here at Tarrys. When at a loss, my next door neighbor, Mrs. Fleming, gives me all the assistance I need and ask for. It has happened more often than I like to confess. That's Mr. Hyson explaining about guests and other things, when I nodded knowingly, so as not to appear too dumb. Being certain that I wouldn't be left out in the cold by my colleagues. Of course, Mr. Inspector and Mr. Principal don't know about these things. And I'm of the opinion that certain things should be kept a secret. You like to see them happy and content. Thank you very much, Mrs. Fleming, for all your help those 4 years. Now, I also wish to thank everybody in this hall for listening to me. Just last night, I heard a story about a man who was giving a dinner talk. He seemed to be rather boring, and by and by everybody left. So at last, there was only one man left listening to him. So at the end of his speech, he said to me, "You are the only gentleman in this room." He said, "Oh no, I'm the next speaker." Mrs. Fleming, on behalf of all present here, all the teachers, I wish you many happy years to come together with Mr. Fleming and your family. We know that you won't be idle, and that somehow or other you'll fill your time with useful activities. We won't forget you. Try not to forget us. May the coming years be good years. Enjoy your deserved rest. May the Almighty God be your guide and your keeper.
Thank you, Ms. Silverman. I'm sure we all heartily concur. And now I'd like to call upon Mr. McKenzie for a brief message from the department.
Mr. Chairman, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, I feel like the next speaker. However, I will spare you because Mr. Hyson said 1 minute, please. Well, I did find out one thing. I was over in Nelson the first day of the festival at 2:00 in the morning when I finally found where the United Church was. Went in the wrong door, got down to the basement, and there was Mrs. Fleming practicing her people before they went on the stage. You know what? That's the secret, you see, of getting these winners.
The following contestants are the winners of their respective classes in the Kootenay Music Festival held in Nelson during 1960. First, Lorraine Kalmakoff of Tarrys recites The Wind by Elizabeth Rendell, winning the girls under 8 class in spoken poetry with 85 marks.
The wind by Elizabeth Randall. Why does the wind so
Next, Peter Cherenkoff of Tarrys recites The Four Friends by A. Milne, winning the boys under 8 class in spoken poetry with 88 marks.
The Four Friends by A. Milne. Ernest was an elephant, a great big fellow. Leonard was a lion with a 6-foot tail. George was a goat, and his beard was yellow. And James was a very small snail. Leonard had a stall, and a great big strong one. Ernest had a manger, and its walls were thick. George owned a pen, but I think it was the wrong one, and James sat down on a brick. Ernest started trumpeting and wrecked his manger. Leonard started roaring and shivered his stall. James
gave the
huckle of a snail in danger, and nobody heard him at all. Ernest started trumpeting and raised such a rumpus. Leonard started roaring and shivered, trying to kick. James gave up when the journey with the goat's mule compass, and he reached the end of his brick. Ernest was an elephant and very well intentioned. Leonard was a lion with a brave new tail. George was a goat, as I think I have mentioned, but James was only a snail.
Now Kathy Moran of Tarrys recites The Visitor by Rachel Field, winning the girls under 10 class in spoken poetry with 87 marks.
The Visitor by Rachel Field. The heather footed and swift as mouse, an elfin gentleman came to our house, knocked his wee brown knuckles upon our door, bowed till the big cat swept the floor. His shiny eyes blinked right at me as he asked for bread and a sup of tea, and plenty of honey, please, he said, for I'm fond of honey on my bread. Cross-legged he sat with never a word, but the old black kettle sang like a bird. The red geranium burst in bloom, and the blaze of fire lighted the room. The china rattled on every shelf, and the broom danced merrily all by itself. Quick to the pantry then I went, for sir that elfin gentleman. I brewed him tea, I brought him bread, with clover honey thickly spread. One sip he took, one elfin bite, but his ears they twitched with sheer delight. He smacked his lips and he smiled at me. May good luck follow you, my child, said he. He circled me round like a neat green flame. Before he was off, the way he came, leaving me there in the kitchen dim, sighing and staring after me, with the fire low and the tea grown cold, and the moon through the window sharp and cold. Only before me, instead of honey, that bread was golden with thick red money.
Next, Edward Blake Allen Nelson recites From a Railway Carriage by Robert Louis Stevenson, winning the boys under 10 class in spoken poetry with 85 marks.
For a Railway Carriage by Robert Louis Stevenson. Faster than bears, faster than witches, bridges and houses, hedges and ditches, and charging along like troops in a battle, all the meadows with horses and cattle, all the sights of the hill and the plain fly as thick as driving rain, and ever again in the wink of an eye, painted stations whistle by. There is a child who clambers and scrambles
Next, Barbara Dempsey of South Slocan recites The Knight and the Lady, Anonymous, winning the girls under 12 class in spoken poetry with 87 marks.
Knight and the Lady, anon. In the good old days of the Table Round, there lived a knight of illustrious fame, who cherished a passion most profound, a truly romantic chivalric flame for a proud and beautiful lady. And she accepted it all as her due, knightly devotion so tender and tried. But when for her love he ventured to sue, who seeketh to woo me must win me, replied this most discouraging lady. Sir Knight, you must wander a year and a day. You must seek for adventures across the seas. You must enter a castle enchanted and slay 3 dragons. And, having disposed of these, you may then come back for your lady. So the good knight went, as in duty bound. He wandered many a weary mile. Adventures enough and to spare he found, and he met and braved them all in style that were quite a delight of the lady. Castles and dragons, he found them too, and settled their fate with small delay. In short, he carried the program through to the last poor end of the year and the day. But he never came back for the lady.
Finally, Alan Wallach, also of South Slocan, recites The Edge of the World by Mary Young, winning the boys under 12 class in spoken poetry with 87 marks, and later winning the championship.
The Edge of the World by Mary Young. From the top of the bluff where the wind flows free, clear out to the edge of the world I see. And I look and look till my eyes grow dim, but I can't see what lies over the rim. I see the steamers moving towards town. I watch the schooners sail slowly down out of sight and far away. Oh, I shall sail over the rim someday. Over the rim and far beyond, to Hong Kong and Baghdad and Trebizond, and Ceylon's Isle where breezes blow, and the happy harbor where good ships go. And it may be bad, or it may be fair, and I may come back, or I may stay there. But one thing is sure, be it gay or grim, someday, I must cross that rim.
Now the Tarrys School Choir, grades 1 to 3, sings A, My Aunt Jane, arranged by M and D Don, and B, The Dream Man by Winifred Berry, winning the junior choir, grades 1 to 3 class with 85 and 86 marks. Now the Tarrys Elementary School, grades 1 and 2, recites The Owl and the Pussycat by Edward Lear, winning the choral group under 10 class with 86 marks.
The Owl and the Pussycat by Edward Lear. The owl and the pussycat went to sea in a beautiful big green boat. They took some honey and plenty of money wrapped up in a 5-pound note. The owl looked up to the stars above and sang to a small guitar. Oh, lovely pussy, oh, pussy, my love, what a beautiful pussy you are. You are, you are, what a beautiful pussy you are. Pussy said to the owl, you arrogant fowl, how charmingly sweet you sing. Oh, let us be married. Too long we have tarried. But what shall we do for rain? They sailed away for a year and a day to the land where the tree grows. And there in the woods a piggy wig stood, with a ring at the end of his nose. His nose, with a ring at the end of his nose. Dear pig, are you willing to sell for 1 shilling your ring? Said the lady, I will. So they took it away and were married next day by the curtain, who lives on the hill. They dined on mince and sliced of quince, which they ate with a round spoon. And hand in hand, on the edge of the sand, they danced by the light of the moon. The moon, the moon. They danced by the light of the moon.
Well, I just wish to say that we are now embarked on the classes which I always enjoy most in the festival, chiefly because I feel that perhaps from the point of view of speech, the choral speech has greater value in the training of very young children. Many youngsters are a little shy about being pushed on a platform by themselves, and no wonder. Some children are capable of getting up in front of an audience, others somewhat less so. And I do think that the choral speech is a wonderful way to get the children started. A child will not feel nearly so nervous or shy or embarrassed if he's up there with his pals in front of an audience and has some moral support. And it will start him in the right direction, give him a little bit of assurance. And in a year or 2 or 3 years possibly, he may be willing to get up by himself in a public speaking class or spoken poetry or something of that kind. Also, from the point of view of speech training, and I think Mrs. Whitehead knows more about this than I do, really, because when it comes to singing choirs, it's very true, I should think, that in a choir, every member has to pull his weight. He just has to, otherwise he can destroy the whole effect. I know with my own choir in Vancouver, which has had, I'm afraid, rather hit and miss training in the last year, that we take in new members periodically, and the new boys, especially when they come in, they're rather lazy, and they stand there in the back rows, and they think they can get away with anything, you see, and they think that I'm not watching or listening. And I hear this going on in the back rows, and I soon spot it and I say, you lazy one, now come on, open your mouth and get going. That we're all what's going on in the back there. You just have to pull your weight. You're destroying the value of everything we're trying to do as a unit, all of us together. And as I say, everyone just has to open their mouths and try to produce pleasant sound with clear words. So, from the point of view, now you little ones don't perhaps appreciate this at this time, but the parents and teachers should know the value of it. I'm sure the teachers do. That this will help you to speak well, as perhaps nothing else will at this stage of your development. And now, choral speech, having said that, is for those of you who are not altogether familiar with it, is a comparatively recent development in festivals. Marjorie Gullen in London, England, is perhaps our foremost exponent of choral speech, and she has developed it to a high degree, but out in this part of the world, it's still rather new to us, and we're still experimenting. Fortunately, choral speech lends itself to experiment, and it's rather fun to play around with it if you know really what you're doing. You must know a little bit of what you're doing. Unfortunately, there's little or no literature written expressly for choral speech, and we have one or two pieces. I commend to you the works of the poems or dramatic stories or little playlists, whatever you want to call them, of Robert E. Garr, who is now at the University of Wisconsin. He has written some material which is most interesting, and of course Marjorie Gullen herself has compiled a few editions with excellent choral speech material. But taking the average poem, for example, this one, which I don't think was ever written for choral speech by Edward Lear, but you can do things with it. You can play around with it. You can do it any way you like. Some conductors like to break their choirs up, the older choirs, the younger ones, into light, medium, and dark voices and so forth. And you can start using soloists, and you can break the choir into different parts and play one part against the other, and so on. I think that with this choir we've just heard, I think the teacher-conductor approached the problem in the right way with these young, light voices, all of our more or less the same timbre, putting them all as a unit together and getting from them not some fancy effects, but rather a good sense of fun and a delightful telling of a story. And they all joined in the telling of that story beautifully. Choral speech is a wonderful test of articulation, and projecting in clear words. It's much easier to do it by yourself, isn't it, than to get up there with several others and all stay together and make every word come across clearly. But this choir did that beautifully. It's not very often in a verse-speaking choir that I can honestly say that I hear every word without straining or guessing or so on. And I didn't have to strain or guess at all. They told the story beautifully, and their word emphasis was particularly good. Because the important words got their primary stress, and less important words their secondary stress, and they threw away the little ands and buts and so forth, which aren't very important. Threw them away, and yet we heard, which is quite a knack. There was delightful word coloring. The slowing up, slightly dragging on the vowels in mood, and the funny little way they twisted the word nose the first time into two syllables, which of course is not legitimate. Normally one doesn't do that. But in this case, the end was justified means, and they gave a little touch of humor to it by the rise and fall on the vowel. So they had a sense of humor. I think their teacher-conductor supplied most of that, but the children responded and they enjoyed it. It was fun, lots of fun. Good humor and a good sense of fun, and I feel that every member of that little choir pulled its weight. If there was just two things, the unison was good most of the way through. Just once in the third stanza, they went a little bit awry, and with a slightly faulty start to the second stanza. But those are minor points, and they perhaps would never happen again. I've enjoyed myself thoroughly, and I given them a mark of 86.